talking about HR from a business partner to an organization transformation partner. It's a very interesting topic for Raymond Rufino. And if you don't know, he's the CEO of NEO, the biggest developer and manager of office buildings in Bonifacio Global City, BGC. The company is also the Philippines' top green developer and the first portfolio in the world to be certified as EDGE Zero Carbon by the International Finance Corporation, the IFC. NEO is also the first office portfolio in Southeast Asia to achieve the WELL Health and Safety Seal. And so all NEO buildings have attained the 5-star certification, which is voluntary, with several serving as pilot projects under the Philippine Green Building Council, Advancing Net Zero Philippines. I had to read that to make sure. I think someone's got their microphone off. If you could just mute yourself, that would be lovely. I know that part of the certification is his passion for tenants, not just the companies in his building. He also talks about the people in his buildings. So he's really an advocate for that. And he serves on boards and executive committees, including the Philippine Green Building Council, Arise Philippines, the YPO Philippines, an SEA region in the SEA region, Urban Land Institute, Global Government Trustee, and an advocate and friend. If you're not friends with him on LinkedIn, he is an advocate, and you will see almost daily about his passion for being green and making this earth a better place, but also how with the people that he works with, the companies that are tenants of his and the people within those companies that are tenants, and how we can all be better. So follow him on LinkedIn, I would say, because you will get some really great top tips. So Raymond, let's give you the Zoom heart clap welcome, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say today. Raymond, welcome this morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Sarah, for having me, and Trixie also for inviting me to speak, and of course you too for asking me to speak in today's session. And thank you also, Sarah, for inviting everyone to connect with me on LinkedIn. So I know as HR professionals, you're all very active on that platform. It's become my favorite platform really to promote my advocacy and to share what we're doing at the company. So don't be shy and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Also, I'd like to say thank you to Anna for being one of our longtime tenants. I am not sure, she probably left already, but it's almost like yesterday that I was sitting in our room here in the office, and Anna was presenting this idea that was Wildflower. And who would have thought that 10 years later, and I think there are already almost 20 restaurants across the country. It's just amazing to see how someone has, really built out their vision for a business. So that was wonderful. So congratulations again to Anna. Okay, so we're going to get started here. I have a couple of slides, and I know I have about half an hour to speak, and I want to be on time. So let me just, put a timer on here. For those of you who know me, I love to talk. If I don't police myself, I can talk forever. So I'd rather keep the time and make sure I don't extend beyond my session this morning. So really, what I'm really going to talk about is driving success through advocacy and purpose. And I'm not an HR expert, though I did take a minor in industrial psychology back in university. So I do have a soft spot for HR and a big soft spot, of course, for people, right? So I want to share a little bit today. When Sarah invited me to speak, I thought, how can I share something about what we're doing that would be relevant for all of you this morning? And I think this advocacy and purpose piece is something that I think would be quite interesting for many of you. So we'll move to the next slide, please. So just a brief overview. I think Sarah mentioned this. NEO is an owner, developer, and manager of office buildings. We have 7 office buildings in Bonifacio Global City. Our first building was one NEO all the way on the left, and on the way on the right, you have 7 NEO, our latest office building. Next slide. We've been very fortunate to have a lot of anchor tenants. You can read these names on the screen. These are some of our anchor tenants across various industries who call our buildings their home, right? Next slide, please. And so what happened during the pandemic was this whole, virus, this whole pandemic situation happened, and you saw all those names of our different tenants. We were having 35,000 people every day come to our 7 different office buildings here in BGC. And overnight, because of the pandemic, that went to almost nobody coming to the office, right? So it was a very, very challenging and quite frankly traumatic time for us, because from very busy, active, workspaces, it became a ghost town, right? So we took advantage of that period to kind of dig deep and said, maybe it's time for us to do a rethink, a refresh of our brand, and really start to reflect on really who we are as an owner, developer, and manager, and try to think about how we really want to position the company moving forward, right? So we kind of started our company back in the year 2000. So this was kind of in 2020. We said, this is 20th year anniversary. Maybe it's time for us to really go back to the drawing board and really rethink about the way we want to handle our business. So we worked with a partner called Go Ahead Concepts, and we thought about refreshing the brand. And as part of that process, we said, let's start and take a look at the key vision, mission, and values of the company, and let's kind of rewrite that for the future, right? So I'd like to share that with all of you today as I try to talk about this important aspect of the business, which is our purpose and our advocacy, right? So you can see this on the screen. Our vision: we dream of a world where everyone lives, works, and plays in spaces that promote their health, safety, well-being, productivity, and happiness. And so I think those are the key words I'd like to just emphasize, because I'm going to be touching on them multiple times throughout this brief presentation: health, safety, well-being, productivity, and happiness. Next slide, please. And what is our mission? If that's our vision, what is our mission that we're trying to work on every single day? So we have, through the hashtag, the NEO Way. So we created this hashtag that becomes sort of our tagline. So, Trixie and I are in an organization called EO. And I remember one of the big lessons I have from being a member in EO is this sort of stack, right? Every business has this interesting sort of business organizational stack of vision, mission, values, unique selling proposition or core proposition, and tagline. And so I always thought about that and thought, it's kind of hard to come up with a cool tagline for the office. But I thought that we could do a tagline that would capture a lot of what we do and the way we do things through this hashtag, the NEO Way, right? So our mission is, through the hashtag, the NEO Way, we create and foster the most dynamic work communities that inspire progress and growth while caring for the well-being of our people and planet. And I think this last piece is so important to us, while caring for the well-being of our people and planet. It's so critical, I think, for us as real estate owners, developers, and managers to have that deep, passionate commitment for sustainability. Next slide, please. So, I love sharing stories. So, please indulge me. I'm going to share a brief story about my personal advocacy, which is for green building and sustainability. So, this could be a long story, but I'll give you the condensed version, right? So back in 2005, I went to the US to take my master's in real estate in Columbia, in New York. And it was a very expensive program. So when I graduated, my father asked me, "Oh, Raymond, you're finished with your studies. You're going to come back home. You're going to join us in our business. What's the one thing that you learned that you can bring back to the business?" So I think my dad was thinking about his ROI on his investment in my education, right? So I thought, there's a lot of things I learned in my program, but one thing that I wanted to bring back was this sustainability commitment, right? Because when we were in our program in the US, our professors are always challenged us and said, look, if you're going to be the future developers of real estate, your buildings are going to be around for 50, 70, if you're lucky, maybe even 80 or 100 years. You have to think about your buildings are going to have on not only the generation today, but on future generations, right? What is going to be that environmental impact, and how can you mitigate that environmental impact? So it was very, very strong for them to kind of sort of push on to us as sort of these young aspiring developers to think about our role and responsibility as, sort of key players in this built environment with all of our buildings. So I told my dad, I want to bring this sort of idea of sustainability. We were already in real estate development for many years. I'm a third generation in the real estate family, but sustainability was not
really part of our agenda. Sure, we were trying to save a little bit on water by having water efficient fixtures. We wanted to save on power. We had sort of efforts to conserve on power, but it was a very, I would say, shallow commitment to sustainability. So fortunately, my father fully supported it, and the company fully supported it. So when I joined end of 2006, we said, okay, we're going to now pivot the company and make sustainability part of our DNA. But beyond just the company, I also wanted to do more for our industry. So I also joined a group of fellow advocates who wanted to transform our industry through green building. You'll see Chris and Anna here on this picture, to my left in the picture. And in 2007, we all got together and co-founded the Philippine Green Building Council. So aside from our company's pivot on a personal and company basis, I said we want to do something for the industry. And today, we're very proud that the Philippine Green Building Council, since its founding in 2007, has become the largest, most vocal and active organization promoting sustainability across the real estate industry in the Philippines. This picture here was a very special moment for us in 2016 when we were in Stockholm. The gentleman handing me this certificate, and I apologize, it's so small you probably can't see it, is Li Xianghuist, who was then the chair of the World Green Building Council. And this certificate was the established member certificate for the Philippine Green Building Council. So we are a member of the World Green Building Council, which is a global umbrella organization for green building councils around the world. When we started, we were just a prospective member. Then, over the years, we became a regular member. And then the highest level of member, or the full member status, so to speak, is to become an established member. And so in 2016, after years of hard work, we were able to finally become an established member of the World Green Building Council, which we maintain till today. And so we are part of a global network of green building councils around the globe, trying to really push sustainability across our real estate sector. So that's my short story about sort of this picture and how I've had this personal advocacy for sustainability in real estate on a personal level, on a corporate level, and also in terms of an organizational industry-wide level. So next slide, please. So just continuing on, I won't go through all of our values, but we also use the NEO way, as I mentioned earlier, to be sort of our acronym for our core values. So we have 6 core values: nation building, ethical, outstanding, well-being, accountability. And one of my favorites is YOLO, you only live once. So I thought it was pretty cool for us to kind of include some of this, I guess, more relevant terminology, especially for our younger employees, right? So I think, what you'll see or what you'll experience in this presentation as well will be a focus on, I think, those 2 values of nation building and well-being, which I'm going to talk a little bit more as we go along, right? So next slide, please. So during the pandemic, as we had this process, right? So we said, okay, we're going to reflect. We're going to come up with a new vision, a new mission, a new set of values. We're going to come up with a refreshed branding and all of the collaterals. I think one of the things that was also very difficult for us was the broader challenge on the office, right? So I'm sure many of you as HR professionals saw those big headlines where the office is dead. Everyone's going to work remotely. I think Heidi, spoke very well about this in her being the first speaker today, talked about this whole remote, hybrid, what's going to be the workforce strategy, what's going to be the workplace strategy. And some of the more extreme voices out there says, you know what, office buildings are a thing of the past. People are not going to want to work back in the office. They're going to just want to work wherever they can work. That's where they're going to want to work. And you can imagine if your business is building, owning, and operating office buildings, that's really scary. It was a very scary time for us as we really had to think about the core question: is the office still relevant at all moving forward, right? So we spent, again, more time reflecting, digging deep, and trying to really think hard about how do we ensure that the office stays relevant for the future. And what I'd like to share with you today is how we've kind of put together our foundation or our philosophy and our approach when we think about our office buildings and how we're making sure that our office buildings will stay relevant for the future. And so I know many of you have a background in psychology. If you are in HR, this will look a little bit familiar, as it's loosely based on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So again, leaning on a little bit of my industrial psychology background here, but let me walk you through what this kind of foundation means, right? So at the base of the foundation is safety, security, and resilience, right? We felt that for every single development we have, we need to make sure that our visitors, our employees, all those coming to the buildings will feel safe and secure. Because if they don't feel safe and secure coming to the building, then there's nothing more that we can do. We cannot build on top of that. So it's very, very important that at the very base, we make sure that safety and security is there so that people can come and not have to worry, about their safety and their security. Resilience is also important. We need to make sure that people feel confident that in the event of a natural disaster, we live in a country that, as they say, has it all. You have earthquake, you have typhoon. In the event of any natural disaster, we want them to also feel that not only the building, but the organization behind the buildings is working hard to make sure that in the event of any of these things happening, that we are ready to respond, ready to act, ready to support them, and that the building and the operations will be resilient, right? So that's the most basic, and we spend a lot of time and energy on that, and I'll talk a little bit more about details on that later, but that's sort of like the base, right? So after you're now able to provide that safety, security, and resilience for the building, the next piece that you layer on top is health and well-being. And I've been, again, advocating for green buildings for the longest time. And what we always like to say is, green buildings are not good just for the planet. They're also good for the people who live, work, and play in them, right? So just because the building is green doesn't just mean that, oh, Mother Nature is happy, right? Green buildings also contribute to the health and well-being of the people who come to these buildings. So we like to say green buildings should be a no-brainer for anyone, because not only is it good for the environment, you're able to mitigate your impact, but imagine all of the people whose lives you could impact by enhancing and promoting their health and well-being, right? So after safety and security and resilience, you move on to health and well-being. Hold on. Okay, so after we have that piece in place, what we next layer on top is community. Can we now have a community among our buildings and between different tenants and employees, so that not only do you feel safe, secure, and resilient in the physical space, not only can we promote and enhance your health and well-being, can we help people to feel like they belong to a greater community, right? So we created a really special, what we think quite unique tenant engagement platform. Again, that's called #TheNeoWay as our sort of tagline. And I'll speak more about that later, but really trying to work extra hard to create and foster that sense of community. And I'm sure many of you are asking, how do you do that? Okay, I'm going to explain that a little bit later, but just hold that there for the time being. So now that you've had people feel like they belong to a greater community, what's next, right? And I think if you are successful in these first three foundational pieces, I think the bottom line of that is we are really helping the employees and the people who work in our buildings become more productive, right? And I think that's very essential. If an employee or a worker is more productive working somewhere else instead of the office, then the relevance and importance of the office is now a question mark, right? So we need to work very hard as real estate practitioners and real estate owners, developers, and managers to make sure that we're doing everything to make sure that when someone comes into that office, we're working with our tenants and even their HR as well to make sure that we are providing an environment that makes people as productive as possible. Because if we're able then to do that, if we're able to say that people are more productive coming to the office, then we hit the top of our foundation, or the pinnacle, or the goal, which is at the end of the day, every organization, as you all know, has that greater positive purpose or objective that they're trying to meet. Can we now, by having employees be more productive, become a real partner to our tenants in helping them achieve their positive purpose, whatever that might be. So imagine if tenants will see us not only as a provider, as Neo, you're providing me a wall, windows, ceiling, aircon, a nice lobby. Sure, that's nice. But can tenants see us now as a partner that, okay, Neo's not just providing me that, they're providing me as a partner, a real way, a real tangible way for me to better achieve the greater purpose of our company. And that is to making our employees and our workers more productive, because more productive employees will definitely help the company achieve that greater positive purpose. So, and again, you have to look at this in terms of foundational layers. You build up one on top of the other, right? Next slide, please. So I spoke about resilience. I think Heidi mentioned this also. She was talking about the resilience of organizations and of individuals. As real estate people, we look at resilience at the level of the buildings or the organizations, right? Of the entire structure. So we were a pilot partner with the International Finance Corporation. There is, and you might not know this, there is now a tool, a technology-enabled tool for every single building in the Philippines to now get rated for resilience. So we piloted this program with our 7 new building. We were very happy to get the highest possible rating, which is an A+. It looks at all of the hazards your building can potentially be exposed to under wind, water, fire, and geoseismic, and looks at all of the things you've done from design, operations, etc., in order to mitigate the effects of these natural risks and hazards, right? And so the goal for us is to now roll this out. We're actually in the process, and by the end of the year, we hope to be one of the few developers in the Philippines that has a resilience rating for all of our buildings. And why is this important? As I mentioned earlier, it's important because tenants, employees need to know that when they come to the building, they are coming to a building that is resilient, that is keeping them safe and secure. Next slide, please. So we also are, again, on that second foundational piece, talking about health and well-being. So I'm not so sure if you're familiar with the WELL Health Safety Rating. We were one of the first in the world to really aggressively pursue this during the pandemic. The WELL Health Safety Rating is basically a rating that buildings and spaces can secure to ensure that users of that space know that everything from the cleaning methodology to the building policies to your equipment installed in the building, everything has been done by the building owner, developer, and manager to safeguard the health and safety of the people in that building. This is an international rating issued by the International Well Building Institute. Wow, our entire portfolio got this. We actually, in 2021, we actually renewed this in 2022. And very proud to have this across all of our buildings. We also, as part of our commitment to health and well-being, the Philippine Green Building Council recently launched the Health and Well-being Rating, which is, you have rating systems for buildings in terms of green or net zero. This one specifically looks at health and well-being. So again, we were a pilot partner with the PhilGBC in getting our 5 NEO building certified. So we out of a certification, at the highest score is 5 stars. Out of 5 stars, we were awarded 4 stars. We just got this last week, so it's really fresh. And again, we're looking forward to having the rest of our buildings certified so that, again, our tenants and their employees have that added comfort and confidence that even their health and well-being, it's not just me saying it, right? It's not just our team marketing it. It's actually a third-party certification issue that, yes, the building has taken a lot of initiatives and actions to safeguard and promote the health and well-being of everyone. Next slide, please. We're very committed, as I said. So you have this commitment to resilience, you have this commitment to health and well-being. But of course, at the end of the day, real estate, being a large contributor to greenhouse gas emissions and one of the guilty parties in the climate crisis that we are all experiencing, we need to do our part, right? So NEO as well is one of the few companies, real estate companies, that has an aggressive net zero commitment. I won't go through all of this because I have a lot of other ground to cover, but what we would like to share here is that most companies are only thinking about making a commitment. Some of the bolder companies have made a commitment to be net zero by 2030 or 2040 or 2050. We were very aggressive because I really pushed our team to kind of really take this commitment to heart. So we committed to be net zero in 2025. Through the hard work of our team, we were able to secure that in 2021. In 4 years ahead of our original target, we actually achieved net zero. We are the first portfolio of office buildings in the world actually to secure net zero certification under EDGE, which is again part of the International Finance Corporation. And I think it's a proud moment for all of us, because if you think about companies committing to net zero or net zero buildings, you're not going to think about the Philippines, right? You're going to think about, oh, that's something the US is going to do, or that's something that the Europeans are going to do. After all, these first world countries are more responsible for greenhouse gas emissions than countries like the Philippines. But it's not enough for us to say that someone else is going to do the effort, someone else is going to just make that commitment. As the Philippines is most vulnerable to climate change, we are victims of all of that effort. And so we can't only play the victim card, we need to actively take our share and do our part to also say we are doing what we can to mitigate our impact and become net zero and reduce our carbon footprint. So we were very proud. So then again, we believe that it's not just about us saying we are net zero. We have actually 2 certifications. One is the Advancing Net Zero under the Philippine Green Building Council, and the other one is from EDGE, to really show our tenants, our partners, that when we say we are net zero, we are truly net zero. Next slide, please. So this is just some of the certifications and ratings we have. I talked about them. I think partnerships is very key. So again, because we are advocating not just within our buildings, not just among ourselves, we really want to extend that advocacy toward the broader real estate industry. And that's only possible when you do partnerships. So membership in organizations is so important. We have the Green Building Council, we have the Urban Land Institute, we have ARISE, which is for resilience, PBSP as part of our CSR. So I think partnerships are very, very key and part of the overall effort for us to expand our advocacy beyond just our company. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I'd like to talk about, okay, let me just do a quick time check. Okay, now I'd like to talk about our hashtag, the NEO campaign. So again, I mentioned, if you remember our foundation stack, I talked about that community piece. And many of you are probably wondering, how does a real estate landlord go about helping create a community among its tenants? It's not very common that you would see that, but really that's one of the things that has been a hallmark of NEO since we started this program many years ago. And what it really is it's a comprehensive program or suite of events, activities for our tenants. So we fully fund and organize an entire program of activities that are done throughout the year. We do about 60 to 70 events per year, and they're classified under these different categories. So what I'll do is I'll walk you quickly through these different categories so you can get a feel of how these work. Now, the way the way that our tenants can take advantage of this is because once you become a tenant of the NEO buildings, all of your employees automatically are entitled to join these free events. So again, all of the HR professionals and HR managers of our tenants love it because automatically they have 60 events they can put into their calendar for their employees and their team without having to do any extra work, right? It's just automatic. But the nice thing about this campaign is that we're trying to look at it very holistically. So we cover quite a bit of range and not just a very specific topic. So next slide, please. So the first one started many years ago. So was our NEO Sports. This is a sports fest we do every year, whether it's badminton, volleyball, basketball. We do this. All of our tenants have teams. They create teams that they now send, and we organize these at different sports venues, and they get to play with each other. And this has been such a hit. It's still one of the most popular programs we have because tenants can not only meet other tenants in the portfolio, but they can get to build bonds with their teammates as they represent their companies. And even if the competition gets very fierce, it's all in the spirit of fun and building that camaraderie among all of the people within the portfolio. Next slide, please. We have NeoLife. So NeoLife is a broad range of various, it's like our catch-all for a lot of different activities. I think the one that I'd like to talk about most here is that one where you see the people wearing in red. This is our street dance competition. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, we had to put this on hold, but we're looking to restarting this. So we actually hold every year a street dance competition where tenants send their teams to street dance and compete. At first, we thought, gosh, will tenants actually participate? It was my team, in fact, who suggested this, the young members of our team, and said, Sir Raymond, let's try to do a street dance competition. And I said, huh? Will tenants even participate? We have 10 to 15 tenant teams every year in fierce competition. The requirement is everyone who dances has to be an employee of the tenant. And it's so much fun. It's that the talent is so amazing. It's so inspiring. And so we have that competition. We do usually hold that competition in the Maybank Performing Arts Theater, and we invite their teammates to actually come and cheer them on. And this becomes such a popular activity for many of our tenants. Next slide, please. We have Neo Safety. Again, safety is very important. So we have a lot of activities where we're trying, whether it's doing drills for practicing drills for earthquake or preparedness, doing various activities to train people in first aid or whatever. We have a lot of these various activities because, again, safety is very, very important to us. Next slide, please. Celebrations. So we're trying to do a lot of things. You know, people come to the office every day and becomes a very boring, mundane experience for most. We're trying to do little things like, for example, on International Day of Happiness, we'll sometimes give out ice cream in our lobbies. During Halloween, we'll give out candies and chocolate. So it's just little things to kind of just give people that sense of oh, today's a different day, and that, you know, every day coming to the office can be a reason to celebrate. Next slide, please. Neo Talks. This is, I guess, the bulk of what we do. This was the most, again, during the pandemic, we couldn't do in person. So we shifted a lot of our events and activities to online Zoom, such as what we're doing now, where we showcase a very wide range of topics under these Neo Talks. And they could cover everything from, again, like we're talking about our Building Resilience Index, or even talking about personal finance, or even certain hobbies, right? Next slide, please. Neo Give. Again, we also have our CSR activities, you know, whether it's, you know, helping public schools or donating blood, various activities which our tenants can also participate in, right? Next. Neo Green, again, because we have again, as I mentioned, commitment to sustainability. We have actual activities, whether it's tree planting or, you know, coastal cleanup. We have these kinds of activities as well to promote our sustainability and green initiatives. Next slide, please. And so I'd like to summarize that all of those Neo Way programs in this kind of quick sort of everything in one picture, right? So when we talk about this idea of sustainability as our advocacy, right, and our greater purpose in trying to envision a world where people live, work, and play in these spaces that are promoting their health, their well-being, their productivity, their safety. If I was to put that into a picture, this would be one of the events that comes to mind. So we had a coastal cleanup event where, you know, again, plastic pollution is a major issue for us. It's one of my advocacies, and our advocacy as well is try to combat plastic pollution. So we had a coastal cleanup in partnership with WWF. And the way that this worked was, it was employees of NEO plus employees of our tenants coming together to just clean up the coast, right? And for me, it really shows the power of when you're able to align your purpose and your advocacy together. And so you now create this wonderful community, not just of your customers or your tenants, but also your employees. And now you create this virtuous cycle where your purpose drives your advocacy drives your purpose. But then going to the next slide, beyond that, you have also your success, right? So I think in closing, I'd like to end this way. I think it's no longer possible for us to look at success or define success purely as being, you know, the best in our industry, being able to provide the best return to our shareholders or stakeholders. I think true success today given the world we live in and the challenges that we all face, we need to integrate into our definition of success our greater purpose. What is our purpose beyond just the financial? What is our ability to make sure that our businesses are giving back, right? Because I really believe, and this is something that we're hoping that more people will start to embrace, is that business can and should be a force for good, right? It can't always be about bottom line in terms of return. You have to be able to do something to make this world a better place. And I think, sorry, it's a bit emotional for me because I've been working so hard for so long to promote this advocacy and push. And it's not been an easy journey. It's been very difficult at times. You have so many roadblocks, so many challenges. But if we could all start to embrace that ideal where we have that greater purpose, we transform that purpose into an advocacy that is not just across our employees or organizations, but that advocacy extends to being able to transform our industry and even our country, then I think that we can all truly achieve that greater success. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Raymond, so much. And I know that in this Q&A, there's been so many questions coming into the list, and Jerry has them, that Jerry's going to really nail you down and focus in more on what you were talking about in that last 10 minutes about the people, the advocacy, and what you're doing. So, Jerry, your turn to grill and question Raymond on some of the questions that have been coming in.
Okay,
Hi,
thank
Jerry.
you, Sarah. Hi, Raymond. Just a few questions, Raymond, just to have a little conversation with you here. I like the way you close this presentation with the, business being a force for good and everything. But probably I'd like to get your view on what's the relationship of purpose and profitability to you as an organization. What do you really focus on as an organization? Is it purpose or profit?
I think they're both, right? I think profitability is a byproduct of your purpose, is the way I would like to phrase it, right? If you have a very, very strong purpose and you're able to pursue that purpose, then the profitability will come, right? I think what happens to most people is they pursue profitability and they think purpose is the byproduct. They reverse the process. And I think that is the reason why the world is in the way we are today, because too many have put the profitability piece ahead of the purpose piece. And I think it needs to be the other way around.
So you're saying it's the reverse. No? It's usually, purpose first and profit is a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
So when you talk about sustainability, there's a question here about how do you make this a way of life within the NEO organization? What exactly are you doing to make people embrace sustainability and make it their own way of life as well?
Yeah, great question. So it really takes daily effort. It really has to be part of your corporate culture. So, I'm always speaking at these types of events, trying to promote the advocacy. We're trying to get our managers and employees to also do that, to get out there and speak and get involved. Activities are really critical. I talked about some of the activities that we do, because it's not just enough to just send an email or tell people about this. You need to get them, Filipinos, diba? It's more about the spirit, right? So to be able to build that spirit, you need to have activities. We have a lot of activities. Like I said, whether it's coastal cleanup or tree planting, doing those things together are very important. You need to reinforce it, right? So everything that we're doing at the company, we're always trying to reinforce that message about how we are trying to, integrate all of this into the day-to-day. So it does take work. It's not going to happen automatically. It does really take work. But the nice thing about it is once you get your employees and your organization galvanized, right? Once you get them together and they start believing in this, then you start to see, especially the young members of your organization, it starts to become, they're the ones who start to push. So sometimes we have some of our own team members, rather than it being coming down from the managers, sometimes it's them saying, sir, can we look at this program? Sir, can we pursue this initiative? Can we do this campaign? And that's what I love, because once you're successful in building that, then it becomes, again, a team effort, a true team effort, rather than it's managers trying to push this down to employees. The employees now contribute to that pool of learning activities and programs where we can all kind of push it together.
Yeah. Is there, Raymond, is there any special leadership training that needs to be undertaken to be able to make people more purpose-driven? In this case, this is your focus, no? Purpose first, profits will follow. Is there any special type of training you're doing for your leaders, for instance, to be able to do this, no? To promote this kind of a culture?
Great question, Jerry. So we haven't actually done any leadership training specifically on that. Now that you mentioned it, I'd love to actually explore that. It's a great idea. For me, I'm very lucky. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a member in two wonderful organizations called EO Entrepreneurs Organization and YPO Young Presidents Organization. Both have a very, very strong learning program for entrepreneurs and business leaders and owners to really sort of reinforce that business is a force of good and how can we as leaders be change agents, right? So I've received that as a gift over my many years of membership in those organizations. But admittedly, it's something that I think we can do more for our managers and employees to give them that leadership training as well. Yeah, to be perfectly honest, we haven't done that across our organization.
Yeah, that's great. Probably something to look towards to. I mean, the other question I have is for organizations like yourself who are so devoted to purpose. How does your performance management system, for instance, align there? Like, for instance, I have basic questions like, do you have purpose KPIs, for instance? Or do you reward people for achieving some purpose milestones, for instance? I mean, is this something that's there?
So great question. That is actually what we're working on right now. Because we developed this vision, mission, values, all of this kind of refresh, rebranding, everything that we've been doing happened over the pandemic, right? So we were very busy. Even that piece about putting that foundation that I talked about, that is all happened just during the pandemic. So we're in the process of just getting everyone still to fully understand and embrace all of that. In fact, we've updated our website. We're coming out with our first sustainability report. So we're working on these sort of critical pieces. But the next step for us is exactly what you're saying. How do we embed that now in our HR systems, really, especially in terms of the performance management systems? How do we put that in? To be perfectly honest, we still are on a traditional kind of performance metrics, type of thing, looking at, what are your objectives, what are your team goals, company goals, all of that. We have yet to integrate this, but that's our next step. In fact, I've been thinking about really how do we start to put all of that in and how do we quantify? Because I guess the challenge there is just quantifying it, right? Because I don't want to put, sort of things in that system only for employees to say, yeah, that's good, but how do I get measured, or how is my performance measured against some of these things? So it is a work in progress. I'm hoping that maybe by next year, 2023, that is something that we'll have in place.
I think the way I'm getting your presentation, I think you're on the right track here when you say, the focus should be purpose and the profit comes as a result of that. It's because sometimes if you focus on profits rather than purpose, it is as if we're putting the cart before the horse. I mean, we have done it reverse. But the way I get it, you're in the early stages of this journey. You've just said you've just refreshed everything. But I know you're on the right track, and I know you still have a lot of things that you want to do to go into this journey. So with that, Raymond, I'd like to thank you for your presentation and this very brief conversation. We'll have a little bit bigger conversation later and see how we can interact as a small group later on. Thank you very much, Raymond. Back to you.
Thanks, Jerry. Thank you.
Thank you.